Welcome back to the Fuel Her Awesome show. Hi, friend. Happy post 4th of July weekend. I hope you had an amazing, long, restful holiday weekend. We are smack dab in the middle of summer fun and adventure and schedules that are all over the place. My guess is that is the same for you, which is exactly why I wanted to share this episode with you guys today. I recently sat down with my new friend, Megan Caldwell, on the Rockstar Mom Summit. And this podcast that you'll hear today is actually from that summit. We had such a great conversation that I wanted to bring what we talked about here to you too. You can learn more about Megan Caldwell at megancaldwellpdx.com. Follow her on socials at megancaldwellpdx. But our conversation was just full of getting back to the basics of empowered eating and understanding biofeedback. We talk about how to actually listen to your body, what it is telling you when you're in the middle of doing all the things like these crazy, chaotic summer schedules. And so I just thought it would be a great time to come back to some of those foundational pieces of empowered eating. You are going to love this conversation as we talk about that shift from control to calm and leaning into partnering with your body instead of controlling it. All right, let's get into it.
My friends, welcome back to the Rockstar Mom. I've got a really special guest for you today, and I'm just so excited to bring Miss Jess Brown on here. Before we hit record here, we were just totally reminiscing about this whole juggle of being a working mom. We are both currently recording this interview on a school holiday. So we've got kids and dogs and all the things home, but that's what makes this real. Jess Brown is a rock star mom herself. She is a registered dietitian, speaker, and professional mythbuster of all things food and body. She's the founder of the Well Collective, where she helps people step out of food confusion, ditch all or nothing thinking, and learn how to work with their bodies instead of against them. With over 15 years of experience in eating disorders, performance nutrition, and gut health, Jess blends evidence-based science with trauma-informed care and real-life practicality. Heck yes. She's known for turning complex nutrition research into guidance that feels freeing, doable, and grounded in real human lives. Jess also challenges diet culture while honoring the body's biology, believing health isn't about control or perfection, but rather partnership. She's the creator of the Empowered Eating Method and host of the Fuel Her Awesome podcast, and a sought-after speaker for athletes, professionals, and faith-based communities. She lives in New Mexico with her husband and 2 boys, where you'll find her lifting weights, camping in her Airstream, or enjoying a really good meal. No food rules required. Jess, welcome to the Rockstar Mom. I am so excited for this conversation today.
Megan, thank you so much for having me. I love what you're doing. You are empowering women everywhere about all things, and I'm just really honored to be here today.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to have this platform and to share my amazing speaker's expertise. I know we're going to be kind of diving into what it looks like to help high achievers kind of free themselves from the perfectionism around food and body and all of these spaces. And before we dive into the meat of what we're going to talk about, I'd love for you to share just a little bit what got you into this work that you do and what makes you so passionate about helping women in this space.
Yeah, I love this question because I've struggled with it. I think like most of us, we go into fields that, we were curious about from personal experience. And my long story short is I grew up in the 90s. So I was very much in the diet culture, skinny is everything mentality, went to college, ended up developing an eating disorder. And honestly, Megan, I didn't even know I had an eating disorder. I mean, it was so common, all the things I was doing that I didn't even recognize it as a problem. My best friend and my roommate at the time, she also had an eating disorder, although hers put her body in a position where people noticed. I, on the other hand, did not catch anybody's attention again, which is why I was like, oh, nothing's wrong with me. But she actually ended up going to see a dietitian who saved her life. And so that opened up this idea in my head of like, well, I wonder if that would also help me. But instead of going to see a dietitian, I decided to take classes to become a dietitian.
Oh, yes.
And it was actually really, really awesome. I started learning about food. And as I started learning about food, I honestly just fell in love with how it works in our body. And I started to learn too much about food in the sense that like I could no longer use it as a form of like abusing my body or withholding it from my body. I had to learn how to partner with it. And so I was able to recover from my eating disorder, also went through therapy. So lots happened in that season. Came out the other side, became a dietitian, started helping people with food. And my main mission was honestly food freedom, like helping people just find freedom with food and feel the freedom to eat what they wanted. And that served me for a really long season until I had kids and became a working mom. And all of a sudden I woke up after I had my first boy and I was like, oh, I need to be a little more intentional with how I eat because I cannot live on donuts and protein shakes anymore.
Right.
Like I am now a working mom. My husband works, he's on call 24/7, and I got to tend to job, my kiddos, and still be a wife and still have a personality inside here. Like
Right.
I've got to take nutrition to another level. So my journey was really like healing my food story, my relationship with food, and then moved into this season of, okay, now that I've done that, I'm actually ready to take it to another level. How do I level up and become an empowered eater? And that's taking food into this place of partnership with your body and being able to come into health goals with curiosity instead of urgency. And so, yeah, it's been a long journey and a morphing journey, but it's been something that, I think we're all affected by. We all have to eat.
Yeah.
And so I had that going on. And while I was going through all of that, being able to see how it could serve others as well, because again, nobody escapes eating. Yeah, I've fallen in love with it more and more every year I've done it.
I love it. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. I feel like I've already taken so much just from hearing a bit of your personal story. And I'm sure that so many of our listeners here can relate to that. I also grew up in the 90s and just diet culture and what was put on us and what commercials showed us and what TV shows showed us it wasn't healthy. And so, I think it's just so empowering to see somebody who struggled with it at quite an intense level. You had other people around you who were also trying to figure this out. And you said, this now becomes part of my mission. And I love how you also shared kind of your journey within this, where it used to be about this concept of food freedom, which I'm sure we'll get into some, but then it was really about empowerment. And one thing that I loved from our initial conversation is just your whole view of this is how do we be in partnership with ourselves? And this is what I see in my work time and time again too, is we often are our own worst enemies, our own worst critics. And that's what we both stand for. And we of course do it in different ways, but it's like, how can we actually just feel awesome and like be in tune with and like lift our body up? So this whole concept of food as fuel, it's one of our foundational Fab 5 pillars in the work that I do. And it's like, yes, let's dive in here. Now, I know one of the terms that came up when we met a handful of weeks ago in preparation for this conversation was this whole concept of biofeedback. And I was like, okay, Jess knows what the heck she's talking about. Like, it's not just you didn't just complete a little nutrition certificate somewhere. Like, this has been a lifelong journey, lots of continuing ed. Talk to me a little about this concept of biofeedback and what that means for us as women as we get to know ourselves better.
Yes, I love biofeedback because this is where we start to understand what our body is trying to tell us. So essentially, the word biofeedback means how your body is responding to what you are giving it. And so in a more clinical setting, that might be real-time biofeedback. A lot of times folks will, if you're working on nervous system regulation, we can regulate heart rate and see how heart rate goes up or down depending on what kind of breathing techniques you're doing. Okay. So that's the heart of biofeedback. In the world I live in, we look at biofeedback in terms of food and movement and how we are caring for the body. There are 3 different types of biofeedback. There's going to be physical biofeedback, neuro-emotional biofeedback, and clinical biofeedback. And each of these are equally important, but I'm going to spend most of the time talking about physical biofeedback because I think that's the most accessible to us. So real high level, real quick, clinical biofeedback is a lot of the work I do as a dietitian. That's going to be running lab tests, evaluating lab work, looking at some of that more clinical data and how we can interpret, if you probably most accessible would be if I've got high blood pressure, that's a form of biofeedback, right? If I have a reading above a certain level, that's biofeedback. So that's a lot of the work I do in the clinic setting. Neuro-emotional biofeedback, it's real interesting. This is nervous system regulation. So this is like, if I stand up in front of an audience of people and my body doesn't like it, right? I'm going to have my heart rate go up, and there's going to be an alarm systems going off in my head. My amygdala in my brain is going, ooh, alarm system. We feel uncomfortable here. And a lot of times that'll show up in people's food journey, and that can look a million different ways. But like one of the ways it might show up would be someone, like here's one. I had this one gal who we were working on getting her into an eating rhythm and eating regularly throughout the day. Well, one of the changes we made was removing an afternoon snack. There was a whole list of reasons why, but we took the afternoon snack off. And so she came back and she was like, Jess, I do not like not having the afternoon snack. And I said, why not? She's like, well, I just need it. I need it. And I kept probing and asking, I'm going, what's telling you that you need it? And she goes, well, I'm getting a headache. And I said, oh, okay. There's some actual physical biofeedback. I said, you're getting a headache. Tell me more about this headache. And as we unpacked it, it turns out she had actually a food story from her past experiences where her mom wouldn't allow her to eat an afternoon snack and wouldn't allow her to eat it. And she would come home hungry. Mom wouldn't give it to her because mom was trying to help her lose weight. So it was a psychosomatic event that was happening.
Isn't that so fascinating?
So fascinating.
I think it's just such an amazing sign. Like it's such a sign as to just how amazing our bodies are, and really this interconnectivity between the physical, the emotional, the mental. Yes. And that's where it's like, I actually started my career, in education, then into the fitness space, and then kind of more as a health coach in terms of like more just true habit building. And what we know to be true is like the actual doing habits, the physical habits are only just a small piece of it, because there's the stories we tell ourselves. I just got off a client call with a client where we were talking about the deeper kind of belief systems that are ingrained. And it sounds like this client of yours had one where it was so deeply rooted that it was like bringing up some of that physical stuff. So it's fascinating to me.
It's so fascinating. Well, and it's such a key part of listening to our body. And I think there was a little overlap there, like I said, between the physical and the neuro-emotional, but both are equally important, because if I would have just addressed the physical and missed the neuro-emotional there, we wouldn't have fully healed her. So we had to tackle both. Like on the one hand, we had to address, okay, is she getting enough nutrition to, make sure we don't have a physical headache? But two, are we also healing the story behind this and teaching her body that we are safe? And so that's a really cool piece of biofeedback that I really enjoy working through. I could go off on that one probably the whole time.
Totally. I mean, there's so much to be covered. I'm curious though, because I know that one of the things that I know that especially high achievers who are, brought up in this culture of go, go, go and never slow down and achieve more and check the boxes, they get so tuned out of their body. And so I think both of our work is really about embodiment and getting back into our bodies and listening to our bodies. What would you say, like, how can women learn to listen to their bodies without over-analyzing every single symptom that comes up or adding more rules that are already going on? Because talk to me a little bit about that.
So good. Because I think sometimes if we start talking about the physical biofeedback, right, like hunger and fullness, now we can start the same tracks in our head of, am I hungry? I don't know. Honestly, it's just pulling on that prefrontal cortex, which is the CEO, the decision-making center of our brain, and flexing that muscle, which we do with mindfulness. And I will never forget this. I was 18 years old. I went to see my therapist and talked to her, and her takeaway for me after one of our initial therapy sessions was, Jess, I want you to feel the temperature of the water when you wash your hands.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? She goes, just do it. And I did it. And what she was teaching me was mindfulness, being present, activating my prefrontal cortex. And I think with women that are overachievers, and I say we, because I'm one of them too, where it's so easy for me to get pulled into the to-do list and all the things I'm trying to, even like just dreaming of, right? Like it's not always bad, but we're just in our head. The best thing we can do is just be where our feet are. Feel
Yeah.
where our feet are physically, feel the temperature of the water. And what that does again is activating the prefrontal cortex, which is going to keep it on and flexed so that as we move into whatever we're doing next, we're present.
Mm. I love that so much. And again, I think as we were just sharing, like in the culture that is just constantly like trying to push you 5 steps ahead, which is where a lot of anxiety lives as well, is
Yeah.
how do we get back into our bodies? And so bringing up this whole concept of like tuning into our senses. I mean, it sounds so simple to like the layman, just in terms of like, just feel the temperature of the water. But I have a question for our audience right now. Like, when was the last time you actually thought about that temperature of the water when you were washing your hands? I'm thinking about how I recently washed my hands right after my kiddo's birthday party today. And I'm like, I don't know. Was it cold? Was it hot? And like just being more intentional and more mindful can allow us to do that. Yeah, one of my favorite exercises that I share with clients is like the five senses. So it's like if you are feeling extreme overwhelm or anxiety in the moment, is like to ground yourself and bring yourself back is walk through all five of those senses, one of them being touch. So good. Yes.
So good.
So mindfulness. Okay. So huge, which I love that you also again named just such a simple one, the washing of hands. Everyone's going to now go wash their hands and think of you, Jess, going after this. I think part of the problem though is that like we as women, and again, I want to remind our audience, this is not our fault that we are in heightened states of stress and chronic fatigue. This is a lot of the systems that we are in, the conditionings that we have. And that's why Jess and I exist, to help us get our power back here, right? So can you talk for a little bit though about, just to kind of bring it to the forefront, or like how does chronic stress and decision fatigue and just our brain constantly being on all the time, how does this impact digestion, bloating, gut stuff, the work that you do in the nutrition space? Even when sometimes it's like women are like, but I'm checking the boxes. I'm like eating my fiber and I'm got my protein. And it's like, there's still this stress piece of it. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
So good. I love this question. And this is some of that neuro-emotional biofeedback.
Mm.
So we have two parts of our nervous system. We have the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. So the sympathetic nervous system, this is our fight or flight. I call it our high heel mode. Like this is the side of us that like gets stuff done. It's not always a bad thing, right? We need to know how to be on. When we are checking the protein box, we are making sure we're getting our workout in. We're, making lunches and making our own breakfast. That is the sympathetic nervous system going. Our parasympathetic nervous system, this is the rest and digest nervous system. When this one is on is when our body is actually absorbing nutrition. And so one of the disconnects that happens is that women are very sympathetically driven, that we struggle to have the handoff over to our parasympathetic nervous system, which is where we actually absorb nutrition. So over time, what this can look like is the digestive tract starts to get really tense and tight. And so when we eat food, instead of food going into our stomach and into our GI tract and being absorbed and processed into our bodies, that GI tract is so tight and tense from being so sympathetically driven that we don't absorb as much nutrition. So like, I cannot tell you, Megan, how many clients I have worked with that are like, Jess, I have low iron and I am taking so many iron supplements. I'm taking iron with vitamin C to help it be absorbed, but I just can't absorb iron. And it's not a passing problem. It's a receiving problem at that point. And so that's again, where we can just learn we have to teach our body how to rest. Like we have to teach our body that rest is safe and that being calm is safe. And I think that's something in our very busy world that it's hard to do.
Yeah, no, I love that you broke down kind of sympathetic, parasympathetic. And what's coming to mind for me is, especially having been in the fitness space, is that women would be doing all the workouts and doing all the things, but still holding on to weight. And just, it sounds to me like this is exactly the point of the research behind like when we are operating from such heightened states of stress, what you're sharing is that our bodies actually physiologically can't absorb, retain, process, even if we're putting the good food into our body.
Yeah. I think of it like football. If you've got a great quarterback who's throwing great passes, but the receiver is not catching the football, they're never going to make any progress. So I have people that throw in great nutrition passes all day long, but they're their receiving sucks. And so they're
Yeah,
not
totally.
able to absorb it. And, I think of when I had my second baby, this is just such a cool example of how the body like switches off into like autopilot. But
Mm-hmm.
when I had my second baby, my water broke. I was one of those weirdos that their water broke first. And
Actually
so
broke. Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
actually broke for both babies.
Okay. I was 1 for 3, but
Oh, were
still,
you?
yeah, it's
Okay.
not as common as it used to be, I don't think.
No, it's not. But it broke. And so I go to the hospital and I was wanting to get labor going because I didn't want them to give me Pitocin. And so I'm like cranking out squats and I'm trying to make it happen, going up and down the stairs. And I have the nurse just grab me and she's like, Jess, get in the bathtub. You need to chill out. Relax.
Yeah.
Let your body do its thing. Quit trying to control it. And I thought, no way. I get in the bathtub within 5 minutes, contractions started. And so,
Yeah.
but I think it's just a testament to where, and this is something I truly believe, like our body wants to be healthy. Our body wants to be able to absorb quality nutrition and get rid of what it doesn't need. Our body is designed to filter that. And it's when we don't let it like kind of just do its thing by backing off, and we try to control so much. There's beauty in letting go and letting our body do it.
Yeah, I would like to dig a little bit deeper here because I know that especially for our type A high achievers who are listening in on this whole concept of control, and that often is what has set us into perfectionism tendencies over the years, is just there is a natural tendency for us as humans to want to feel in control because again, that allows us to feel safe. So I want to hear your take a little bit on, you shared a little bit, but like how letting go of control around food often improves the function of it within the gut and within the body. And also, aside from like deep breathing or like how else can we actually let go of some of that control when it comes to the space of our nutrition?
Yeah, I think one of the best ways to let go of control of hyperfixating on nutrition is looking at the fact that like what your body has been through and you're still here and you're still okay. And I think there's so often we get caught on like, I have to do all these things perfectly. But if we look at the history of our lives, I guarantee I can find reasons your body has, or ways your body has been resilient that we didn't quite give it credit for. So for example, like I grew up in a fast food family. We just ate tons of fast food. I'm one of 4 kids. My mom and my dad worked. It was just wild. And I think I know they did the best they could. And I actually loved McDonald's. It was my favorite food. I loved it.
Yeah.
And, I look back and when I was going through recovery from my eating disorder, it was really helpful for me when I was like, going, oh, I ate this food and it wasn't healthy. It wasn't perfect. It was really helpful for me to go, yeah, but I had years of eating McDonald's. Was it the best? No. But was I okay? Yes. Like I came out the other side of that. And I think that's a pretty extreme example. But I think if anybody listening looks at their past, it's like we've all done some crazy things to our body and it has been resilient. And I think just knowing that can help us go, okay, what do I need to prioritize and focus on versus trying to control all of it?
Yeah, I love that. It's so powerful because I think especially when women are in deep states of overwhelm or burnout, it's like part of the challenge of getting out of it is it just feels like too much. So really being able to prioritize like what is the one small step or what is the next thing that I can do versus, and I also love that you are a dietitian and you also grew up on McDonald's and like you've turned out okay. Do you know what I mean? Like it sounds like so silly, but I think that it like gives other women permission to be like, one of my favorite sayings is you've survived 100% of your worst days, where it's like we as women really have the opportunity here in this next season to step into self-compassion and grace and a little bit more self-love. I think oftentimes we work with similar age population where it's like we get to kind of this middle season of life where it's like, oh shit, like this is actually like the one body that we have. And how can we release some of I was going to say the bad or the wrong, like we've all ate weird or done drugs or like done whatever else, like to be like, that was a season and now I'm ready to focus and really truly prioritize me. So that's really powerful. And I think that leads into, I want to really explore with you, like this whole concept of body partnership. I just love that because I think, as we already named, like oftentimes we are our own worst enemy and we're not in partnership with our body. So, what does a sustainable body partnership approach to nutrition? We can even go a little bit deeper into gut health if you want to break that down for some of our
Yeah.
listeners who maybe aren't as familiar in that space. What does this realistically look like for the woman who is balancing all the things or trying
Yeah.
to balance or juggle work, family relationships, home,
Yeah.
etc.?
Yeah. Grace on grace on grace.
Mm-hmm.
I think we, when you're in a relationship, like spouse, friendships, right? There's always a goal to like get to know each other better, understand each other, but at least in a healthy relationship, right?
Yeah.
To
Right.
understand each other, know each other better. And um, that's a journey. That's a process. And so when it comes to our partnership with our body, it's going to look the same. And that's going to be dependent on what season we're in. And it's going to require listening to our body.
Mm,
And that's the biofeedback piece. How is my energy level? How am I sleeping? Do I feel like if I'm working out, am I making it through my workout? Do I feel good after my workout, or am I completely drained? Am I bonking in my workout?
mm,
How am I sleeping? What are my hormones doing? What's my lab work? All of these questions,
yeah.
just getting to know what is happening inside my body and doing it from a place of curiosity is so important, because if we're going to make a
Yes.
partnership, we have to ask those questions, not with like a rubric going, you must meet this criteria, but we have to ask those questions with curiosity. If I'm not
Mm,
sleeping well, why am I not sleeping well? Why
yeah.
why isn't she able to rest? Is there something she's not getting? Is there support that she needs? And from a nutrition standpoint, there are things we would look at, like adding in magnesium, doing some nervous system regulation work,
Right.
our hormones balance. Like there are some clinical
Right.
factors in there. But again, I think as women, we tend to come in with our rubric saying this is what it's supposed to look like. And when it doesn't match that, it really steals from the conversation of partnership.
Mm. Oh, there's so much goodness in all that you've shared so far, but I love this concept of curiosity. And I think it is something that when we invite ourselves to get curious about something versus, I just failed or I didn't do it right,
Mm-hmm.
or
Yeah.
gosh, we start to beat ourselves up, but just really be like, okay, I have a terrible stomach ache. Like, I'm curious.
Yeah.
Was it something I ate, or is it stress, or did I get kicked in the gut, or like whatever
Right.
it might be is really, I love this whole concept of without the rubric, because again, we all grew up with a trying to get the 100% on everything. And
Mhm.
so it's making me think of, is it Miguel Rodrigo Luis, I think he's the author of the Four Agreements book, and one of the agreements, I think I messed up his name, but that's okay. Is no assumptions. Like, do not
Mm.
just assume things, and that to me is really about go into things with curiosity. Like, we
Yeah.
can't assume that just because my gut like is hurting or my stomach's hurting right now that I all of a sudden have cancer or something, right? It's like,
Right.
let me get
Right.
curious so I can better get to know myself, learn myself, be in partnership with myself.
Right. And I think on the gut health front, like that's a big one. And one of the common trends I see in the clients I work with is like, I ate this, and so it caused this. Right. And
Mm,
there's always like, I'm pointing the finger to something. And part of that it makes sense because we want to
right,
understand what's happening.
right.
But I think if we can stay curious instead of jumping to the assumption, I love that
Yeah,
so much. What it does is it allows us to evaluate things from like a higher perspective, from a broader lens, so that we can
yeah.
understand. So, for example, I just had someone reach out to me who was having a lot of bloating. We had worked on her gut health for a while there and got it in a really great place, but it had just, she was having symptoms again. So she messaged me and said, what do I do? But before I answered, I asked several questions. I was like, have
Yeah.
you been sick? Have you
Yeah.
changed anything recently? Has there been, turns out she was sick. The
Mm,
bug that just went around, it has wreaked havoc on people's guts, like mine included.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, like, anyways, we were able to like figure out, oh, it was probably the bug. It's resurfaced some old symptoms. We just need to recalibrate and go back to some of the things that worked in the past. But there again, we stayed curious. And instead of her, at first, she was like, oh, I did something wrong. Why is it here again? That's setting the rubric
Yeah.
down and going, hey, life happens to all of
Right.
us. I mean, I do
Right.
this for a living, and I'm restarting my gut protocol right now
Right.
because
Right.
I
Right.
was just sick and it hurt my gut too. But it's understanding, like, I now know, okay, when I see these symptoms in my, I call it my poop report, in your bowel
I
movements.
love it. Yes. Also very important to track.
Very important. It's biofeedback. When I
Yep.
see these certain symptoms, I've learned how to like try different things that work and respond in ways that alter it and adjust it. So it's less about
Yeah.
control there again, right? It's more about like, okay, I listened to my body. I paid attention before I flushed the toilet and saw some of these symptoms that I saw in the past. Now I know how
Yeah.
to work with that.
Oh, it's so powerful. Yeah, I just hear you saying over and over again just the power of like slowing down and being mindful and getting curious and asking ourselves questions in terms of like, what could this be? Versus, again, I think we live in a culture and a society where we're like, just give me the pill. What's the quick
I
fix? Get me out
know.
of this. Like, and if we can really view our own physical, emotional, mental health on a spectrum and on one that we're on a journey with ourselves, because let's just be real, like we are all going to continue to age. We are going to eventually one day pass on. We don't have to go there today, but like
Yeah.
we're not just going to like stop ship and like all of a sudden figure everything out, because as you
Yeah.
said, life is going to continue to life us, and trusting that we have the resiliency and know-how and supports to move through can be so
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's beautiful. Okay, question for you. So the woman who gets really curious after today's conversation and starts to be more mindful and is noticing some things maybe she wasn't noticing because she was like just head down. At what point does a woman know that they can, or I almost was going to say the word should, but my listeners know how I feel about the word should. At what point would it be beneficial for a woman to reach out to a dietitian such as yourself to go a little bit deeper in this work?
Yeah. So I think there's a couple of things. First of all, there's a lot women can do today moving forward, right? Like if you start noticing, I always start with some of the foundational habits, which are going to include like getting adequate protein. That is important. And that's something that will change people's life just by starting to look at, am I getting enough protein? You know, am I
Yeah.
hitting my goal? That's huge. Fruits and vegetables. Like this isn't sparkly, right?
It's
Protein
not, yeah,
and
it's not
fruits
rocket
and
science.
vegetables.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can go a long way with that. And I think if you try something like that, and there are other things your body is telling you, like if your bowel movements are unhealthy, and unhealthy is, let me back up. Healthy is 1 to 3 snakes a day is what I say.
Okay.
That's what we're looking for. If you don't have those, you have loose stool, you have constipation, those popping up, and it's not going away, having more adequate, steady protein and more fruits and vegetables, something might be off. And there's
Okay.
definitely things that can go on in the gut from sicknesses, things happening over time, stress seasons that we need more than food to correct
Sure.
that.
Okay.
So that's a big one. Looking at your bowel movements, that's huge.
Okay.
Other ways to listen to your body, you know, if you are having irregular menstrual cycles, even in the perimenopausal years, like there are huge shifts happening in our hormones. And yet, if your period is doing something funky several months in a row, that is it saying that something is off. And that would be a time
Okay.
to go see a professional. Those are the two big ones I see in my
Sure.
realm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to say that I love that we're talking about poop here. I mean, it's one of those things. Well, one, it brings me back. You have two boys. I have two sons myself and a daughter, where it's like, this is just normal conversation in many moms' lives. But like, we're often talking about the baby's poop or the dog poop for that matter. And it's funny, not funny, but it's like kind of similar to the, like, when was the last time you thought about the temperature of the water you washed your hands, is like, when was the last time that you actually observed what your bowels looked like?
Yeah.
And using that again, this whole concept of biofeedback, I think is so powerful to like invite women to say, like, this is one of the ways that you take your power back and you can feel like a rock star, is by learning these simple things and ways to listen to the body. And then also knowing, like, one of the big things I preach is, my friends, like, there's so much information out there, and could you Google or go to chat and like try to figure out? You could. And there's something so powerful about turning to true professionals such as yourself and me, just in terms of having somebody see you and be able to help you analyze it for your own body. Because let's be real, each of our own bodies is so unique, even though you might see trends and can give kind of general overall, eat your vegetables and drink more water. It's like what each of our own bodies is doing is just, I mean, truly miracle. Like it's miraculous.
It is. It is. And I want to add one more thing. The other piece is like, if you get stuck on something and you're having a stronger emotional reaction than you feel meets the situation, that's a sign of unprocessed food story trauma. So for example, one of my clients the other day, we were working on her protein and I messaged her. I said, hey, you didn't quite hit your protein today. And I'm a super positive person. So I said it in a real positive way, but she and I have such a great relationship. She messaged me back and said, Jess, for some reason, I did not like when you told me that. It upset me. And I think we need to talk about it. And I was like, yes, we do. Yes, we do. And I think that's the stuff you're right. Like you can get on chat now and get a macro plan, no problem. But it's those stories that change how we interpret the nutrition information that sometimes we need someone to hold that story for us and to witness it and to help us heal. So I think that would be the other thing. It's like bowel movements, hormones, and feeling really strong reactions to things that you're going, hey, why am I feeling, what is this? I feel like I need to pull this thread.
Totally. And you've already shared that you've like been in therapy before. Maybe you still are, I have a coach and I see a therapist as well, where it's like, sometimes we just need that outside perspective and somebody to, I always like to say, it's like guide us through until we can hold ourselves. Yes. And so, I always share, like, my goal is to not ever coach a client for 20 years on end. Have I had some longer term clients? Absolutely. Because they've just been on a different journey, but like how do we find someone or some type of support to help us move through the challenging seasons so then we can really flourish on our own? So, oh man, Jess, this has been such a powerful conversation. I just love everything we've talked about. I'm curious. So for our Rockstar Mom Summit here, you have offered our audience a awesome free gift. Would you like to share just a little bit about that?
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you for doing this event. It is such a cool event that you are doing. I'm sharing the Meaning Beyond Macros workshop. So this is about a 45-minute workshop where we actually go through these biofeedback markers, what they are. We talk a little bit more about the neuroemotional markers. And then with that, I have a 12-day reset menu that folks can take and start to run with. So we're really hitting on like, here's your takeaway, like tangible nutrition tools. But then also let's have the discussion on what we're doing beyond macros.
Very cool. Oh, that sounds awesome. I'm curious in that space, so I might go download that myself. Well, Jess, this has been such a pleasure to talk to you, hear a little bit of your brain and expertise. Before we sign off for the day, is there anything that you'd like to leave our audience with?
Your body is amazing. And I think if you named 2 things that it's doing for you, for every one thing you named it's not doing for you, I think we would all be in a greater posture of gratitude.
Oh, that's so powerful. Yes, yes, yes. Just reminding ourselves of all the amazingness that our body is doing.
And that's a wrap. Thank you guys so much for being here today. Go give my new friend, Megan Caldwell, a follow. You can find her details in the show notes. And if you're interested in that freebie I mentioned, you can grab it as well. I have that free webinar with all the details on diving deeper into biofeedback. Have a beautiful day, my friend. Until next time, cheers and happy eating.